I want to start first with this potential vote. You did not support the discharge petition. How are you planning to vote next week?
Yeah, I'm going to vote yes. I mean, I've said all along I'm for, total transparency here, consistent with protecting the victims. And so this is going to be coming for a yes up or down vote on the House floor next week, and I plan to vote yes.
That was GOP lawmaker Kevin Kiley becoming the latest in what promises to be a long line of Republicans who are feeling increasingly unburdened to be able to defy Trump and vote in favor of releasing the Epstein Files when it comes up for a vote next week in the House. Kiley joins Warren Davidson, who also didn't vote for the discharge petition, but who, once it passed, then came out and said this.
Look, I think the Oversight Committee, I'm going to vote for it if it comes up because...
You'll vote for the bill.
Yeah, because, look, I think the Oversight Committee has pushed out a lot of disclosures. The administration's done a lot. If you look in the UK, they've tried to do something towards Prince Andrew. But one of the things that went away during the shutdown is Pam Bondi was supposed to come to the House and answer these questions. And look, I'm not on the Judiciary Committee, but I did want Pam Bondi to come and do some explaining.
And of course, Kiley and Davidson are joined by Eli Crane, Don Bacon, and 4 other Republicans who'd signed onto the discharge petition: Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace, and Thomas Massie at a bare minimum. Massie, for his part, explained that now that the vote is inevitable, support for it will, quote, snowball. Now, why is that important? Because even if it passes the House and passes the Senate, which is a tall order considering it'll require not 50 but 60 votes in the Senate, which means 13 Republicans have to defect, then it's clear that Donald Trump will just veto the legislation. So what's needed here will be a veto-proof majority to override Trump's veto. And that's a point that Massie made here.
How many Republicans do you think will vote for this on the floor?
Well, I've already had a couple Republicans tell my office privately that they're going to vote for it, and I think that could snowball. The deal for Republicans on this vote is that Trump will protect you if you vote the wrong way. In other words, if you vote to cover up for pedophiles, you've got cover in a Republican primary. But I would remind my colleagues that this vote is going to be on your record for longer than Trump is going to be president. And what are you going to do in 2028 and 2030 when you're in a debate, either with a Republican or a Democrat, and they say, how can we trust you? You covered up for a pedophile back in 2025.
And frankly, Massie's right. These Republicans have been groomed to fear Trump at every turn, but all they're doing is cementing their legacy that they have to shoulder long after Donald Trump is out of office. I discussed that with Pod Save America's John Lovett here. When we look back at the war in Iraq stuff, it became clear after the fact, quite a bit after the fact, that the people who voted in favor of this thing were on the wrong side of history, and the people who voted against it, few though they may be, or few though there were, they were on the right side of history. And so Massie had kind of alluded to that as it relates to the Epstein Files. He basically said there's going to come a point where Trump isn't going to be there to defend you, and so while you're casting your vote on the upcoming discharge petition vote to release the files next week in the House, you have to remember that like Trump won't be on the campaign trail with you and on 2028, 2030, 2032. And so how are you thinking about that in relation to this Epstein situation? Like, do you think that it matters for these people, or is the threat of Trump looming over them and the threat of being the subject of his ire so great that they would ignore the fact that they will be casting a vote basically to run cover for a pedophile ring? Like, are they thinking about it in the same lens as the Iraq War and how they'll be remembered for a depraved vote? Or are we just so calcified in our polarization and so afraid of Daddy Trump that even if it means we have to literally protect a pedophile ring, that's a vote that they're perfectly willing to take?
I think we're going to learn a lot next week. It's very interesting that Trump brought Lauren Boebert to the White House to try to buttonhole her into voting no, because once Grijalva was seated, they needed to pull one person off. They couldn't get her, right? They can't get Marjorie Taylor Greene. They can't get Thomas Massie. Massie and Khanna did an interview, and they thought the defections could be as high as 30, 40, 50. Some people have estimated that defections could be as high as 100 from the Republicans, which would, by the way, also be a veto-proof majority out of the House, because this would still have to go to the Senate and then go to Trump. It is amazing what a week and a half can do. 2 weeks ago, Trump was joking about never leaving. He's never been more of a lame duck than he is right now. If he can't hold, like, he's going to lose this vote. That's done. And because he's going to lose this vote, and it's going to be on the record, Mike Johnson tried to do what's called unanimous consent to try to get it through without anybody having to be on the record. I think that is both because he knows a lot of his members are afraid to vote yes, and he knows a lot of his members are afraid to vote no. But I think that the floodgates could really open, and that is going to make Trump look incredibly weak. It's also then going to go to the House, to the Senate, where all of a sudden a bunch of these senators are going to be like, what equity is there for me in voting no on this fucking thing? So I think it really exposes that, like, it's in a strange way, like kind of normal politics, Trump is just not as powerful to these guys. And that's the point Massey's making, right? It's not, yes, these guys don't, history, votes for history. These guys are barely able to think one day
one day in
ahead.
advance, yeah.
And it's been interesting, too, like, what issues can people break with Trump on? One of them for a long time has been budget, right? That especially in his first term, there were Republicans, House Freedom Caucus members who said, look, they are MAGA all the way through and through, but they won't vote for increasing the deficit. That's an ideological conviction that is deep for them, and I think quite real, as misguided in some ways as I think it is. And that was hard for Trump. He had to navigate that because there were people that were willing to buck him. And it's interesting how Epstein becomes that too, right? Because it almost gets at the deep motivations beneath the right, one of which is a kind of anti-tax, anti-government spirit, and the other is a conspiratorial, anti-establishment spirit. And those are things Trump has tried to harness, but it's very dangerous for him to buck it. And this is an issue where clearly, like just step all the way back. Donald Trump is doing the worst fucking politics on earth for him, which is fighting the release of the Epstein Files when everyone thought he was the guy that they were sending to undo the fucking deep state cabal that was protecting Epstein and his powerful friends. Or is it the second worst politics for Trump, which is whatever's in this shit
is worse than even this.
It is worth what they're doing here, which is so suspicious. Boebert said this. Boebert is like, why are they fucking pushing me so hard against this? It makes me only more sure that we've got to undo, we've got to get this information into the light because it sure reeks of a conspiracy. And it's like, Lauren, babe, I'm with you. I can't believe how much this has made all of us conspiracy theorists, because for years this was Pizzagate and secret codes and emails and a cabal of Hollywood Democrats and fucking Jews protecting a ring of high-level Mossad pedophiles, whatever the full breadth of the conspiracy was. Then all of a sudden Donald Trump is president, and there really is a group of people inside the Department of Justice preventing us from understanding what is going on with Epstein. As Ghislaine Maxwell, one of the most despicable fucking sex traffickers of notoriety in American history, like Epstein's girlfriend pimp, is being given a dog to pet and transferred to a minimum security fucking prison with no explanation? Are you kidding me? Dodd Blanche goes and interviews her and does a softball interview that these emails now clearly make clear either he was trying to avoid the truth, didn't know how to get at the truth, or was snowed by this person. Lauren Boebert, how bad has Trump managed this? How fucking deep does this go? Lauren Boebert and I are equally conspiratorial at this point.
So the reality here is simple. While things might seem convenient now to blindly defer to Trump, he won't be around forever. But your vote to defend a pedophile ring will. That's not something that you'll be able to outrun or try to explain away. There are already too many Republicans who are able to acknowledge objective reality to be able to give you any cover when a few years down the line, your vote to protect pedophiles suddenly becomes inconvenient without that assurance of protection from Daddy Trump. And to that end, someone should probably let Mike Johnson know.
Mr. Speaker, you say that you're for full transparency, so why not just urge all your Republicans to vote for this Massey Connell bill on the Epstein Files next week? Put out all the files. Let the American public judge for themselves what these
we
files
are. Thank you
about.
for asking the question. We have been for maximum transparency of the Epstein Files from the very beginning. What I was opposed to is the reckless disregard that was used in drafting the discharge petition. And we've been over this many times, but it was not drafted in such a way that it would adequately protect innocent victims. We have a responsibility to do that. There's as many as 1,000 women, by some estimates, of people who have been victimized because of the sex trafficking and Epstein and all these horrendous, heinous crimes, and we can't have them subjected to any further harm. So we wanted to make sure that those names were properly redacted out of the files. But the discharge petition is not only reckless, it is also a totally moot point. The Oversight Committee has been working, as you all know, around the clock, working on this. And you have some of the toughest members of Congress on the Republican and Democrat side who are working in bipartisan fashion to go through and release those files. As we stand here tonight, I think we're up to over 50,000 pages of records that are out in the open. You can go online tonight if you're at home and go through it yourself.
First of all, regarding the files released by the Oversight Committee, 97% of them have already been released to the public. James Comer is just releasing what we've already seen and then relying on hacks like Mike Johnson to pretend that it's some huge victory for transparency. And yes, the emails that make news are from the Epstein estate. Guess what? Those files in the estate are already in the DOJ's Epstein files, along with hundreds of thousands of other documents. We would be able to see all of it if it wasn't being suppressed by this administration and their loyal allies. And finally, give me a break on this idea that Mike Johnson would definitely, totally love to release the files if but for his insistence that the victims be protected. The reality is that the bill specifically allows for exemptions to protect victims' identities and to ensure ongoing investigations aren't compromised. But that's inconvenient for Mike Johnson to admit, so instead, he'll stand up there and pretend that he's suddenly concerned for the same victims while he spent the last 2 months protecting the perpetrators of their crimes. And look, if that's what Mike Johnson wants to do with his legacy, that's his prerogative. I personally would not want to be remembered as the guy who orchestrated a pedophile ring cover-up in the house for 2 months or more. But then again, I also wouldn't want to be the guy whose son gets notified when he looks at porn, and yet that hasn't stopped Mike Johnson either. But while Johnson's legacy is cemented by virtue of what he's choosing to do, it's not too late for everybody else in the GOP to get on the right side of history. The side of history that their own party ran on during the campaign.
Everybody in politics has a vice that's much worse than alcoholism is the way that I put it. But we
release the list.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
You say that the FBI has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it. That doesn't seem like something you should do. You're protecting the world's foremost predator. That seems like an evil thing to do, regardless of who may be embarrassed in the release of that list. Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
You wondering why we're not hearing more about this Epstein case? I mean, the guy was only connected to just about every major player in the swamp internationally, and yet you don't hear much about it. And what the hell are they hiding with Jeffrey Epstein?
I mean, hell, even Trump himself exploited the issue on the campaign trail.
Nice guy. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein.
You raised the question of Jeffrey Epstein in your remarks about in the Q&A.
Well, I think he's got a problem. I mean,
what do you think the problem will be?
I don't know, but that island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew. He'll tell you about it. The island was an absolute cesspool.
So the Republicans have a choice here. They can be on the side of the victims, on the side of their own voters, on the side of what they themselves promised during the campaign, or they can be on the side of one man, Donald Trump, who is implicated in the Epstein files and wants to protect only himself. More and more Republicans are recognizing that there is no utility in taking that toxic position for a lame duck president and a friend to the most notorious pedophile in American history. And now that the dam is breaking, I hope the rest of these Republicans choose to be on the right side of history. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.